everyone. Welcome back. It's about to get hot. Welcome back to the Hot Mic Podcast. I'm Nate the Barbarian, your humble host. And as always, I am not alone. Now, let me give you a heads up. I know a lot of people were tuning in. Perhaps we had announced that we were going to have Ken Colbert on, who is the president of the FOP, and it was great timing. We had no idea that the FOP was going to put out a vote of no confidence against Mayor Avtas. So we were excited about that. But we had some technical difficulties. What can we say? I mean, it's 2025. This is not a perfect science just yet. But we did reschedule Ken for Friday. So we hope to talk with him then. But we've got our crew together. We got TNT, aka, I'm sorry, Angry Black Woman. How are you? Good to see you.
All right.
She all right. She had the war paint on. She was ready. Terrence Horton, how you doing, bro?
How y'all doing today?
Yeah, he was ready as well. Phil Heimlich is looking like he wasn't ready, but he was ready. Knives out. How you doing, Phil?
Hey, oh yeah, I'm ready. Oh yeah.
Of course, the voice of reason.
I said to, by the way, I said to Kevin because I know how pumped he was to cross-examine Ken Cobra. I told him to be sure to take his meds, before the show. When we thought Ken was going to be on.
And of course, the voice of reason, my bro and partner in this endeavor, Kevin Aldridge. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Happy Tuesday. Yeah,
Absolutely.
a little disappointed with the technical difficulties, but we'll be back on Friday. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed, but I've done this enough and had enough disappointments to know that it can happen. So we will try to work it out. We were all looking forward to Ken coming on. And it's funny, I was talking with Tarris beforehand. He was telling me about his excitement. And I was telling him my approach is, I don't do gotcha. I learned a very harsh lesson about 25 years ago with a man named Phil Heimlich. This is real talk.
Yeah, but that was an exceptional guest. I mean,
That was
I
learned
like that.
I learned the hard way. I swear on everything. This is the truth. I learned in that interaction. I don't do gotcha. I just prepare. I ask questions, and if there's some natural disagreement or friction, it is what it is. But I learned in that interaction. If you haven't heard the story, I'll tell it real quick. About 25 years ago, a buddy and I were over at WAIF. We were the young, hotshot black liberals in the city. And, we knew everything, couldn't tell us nothing. We knew more than the older generation. And we had invited Phil Heimlich on, who at that point was the arch conservative nemesis. And I mean, we prepared for a week. We had all of our questions. We was going to let Phil Hamlet have it, let him know about this black intelligentsia. And at the end of the conversation, we were friends. Phil walked out like, okay, see you later. We were like, bye, buddy. It just didn't go. It went 180 degrees the way we thought we were.
It's called charm. It's called charm. That's what it is.
It's absolutely called charm because I see it displayed on this podcast as well, but there's levels to it. And on that day, I realized where I was and I changed my approach. I mean, real talk. So I don't do gotcha and all that kind of stuff. I just ask questions. And if there's natural friction or disagreement, it is what it is. So thank you for that lesson, Phil. I'm sure you saved me a lot over the years doing interviews.
Hey, anytime I can give you lessons on anything, Nathan, I'm available.
Absolutely. I'm sure that you are.
Can I add a little context with this before we go further? Whenever I'm on this program, and I often talk about when white people have the chance to do the right thing, and every single time they disappoint, they don't. They just drop the ball when they have the time. They have the right opportunity in the right moment, and it's lined up for them to do the right thing. And every single time, they never come through. They always drop the ball. It's so disappointing to me because I grew up in a predominantly white area to where I've got heart. Kevin even said in the last programming, Tarris, you got a big heart if you think that they're going to do this. I still had faith that this would go over. We'd have a good conversation. But like you said, it didn't. Hopefully by Friday, he doesn't get a chance to backpedal on his. I even asked my wife to pack me an extra bun for lunch today.
Hey, why don't you make your own sandwich? This sounds like a very chauvinistic household.
My wife loves her feminine roll. My wife loves her. If I try to make my own breakfast, my wife she'd be mad at me because I was going to ask Ken, what do you put? What is missing from this burger and bun? There's nothing in it. Just like that fake non-condolence letter that they wrote. It's a nothing burger. It don't mean nothing. It was a dog whistle endorsement for Corey Bowman. That's all it was. And I was going to hold him to the fire on. I was going to say, is this your way for the white half of the FOP to say that they back Corey Bowman? Or what was it? I was going to give him an opportunity to answer those questions because I think the Sentinel, they don't agree with this thing, if I'm not mistaken. I was going to give him the opportunity.
Nathan, when Cobra's on, I hope you have the ability to mute his mic. Tarris's mic. I hope
because that's exactly what you would want. But those are the questions that I was in. I had to get that off before we go any further because that's the answer that I was going to ask him. That was the question I was going to ask him. Is this your opportunity to say you don't like the leadership because you have an opportunity to bring the National Guard into Cincinnati to over-police black folks even more? Is that what you want to do? I wanted to answer those questions, but now now that he's got a little bit, now he's going to have a few days to think about these things. And because those are the questions I was going to ask. And I hope you're watching. That way you can have your answers ready because those are the questions I had to ask. That was a nothing burger. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. All you did was stoke fear in white
may I ask, are you referring to his column criticizing the mayor, Tarris?
Whatever.
Well, no, I'm asking you, what are you referring to his recent, I think it was
I think he's talking about I think they also endorsed or were talking about endorsing Bowman for mayor.
Oh, it wasn't an endorsement. It was a
right.
Vote of lack of confidence. But it was a dog whistle non-endorsement because they can't come out and endorse either candidate. They can't come out and say this is our mayor.
They can.
Sure they can. They endorse candidates and they probably won't endorse AFTAB.
Yours truly was endorsed every election, not to brag about it. But let me just throw something out that I think we can talk about. It's relevant to what Tarris said, even without Ken Cobra being here. I do think that there was some legitimate concern that they charged that whatever you call him, the Russian or whatever his name is, with albeit a minor crime, and I told you that was the only one he could have been charged with. But it does seem like it was more of a political decision than a law enforcement decision, and I think that's why Cobra was kind of upset about it. And I have to say, from the facts, it sure sounds like it came from the political people as opposed to the law enforcement.
But what political people started? What political people set it off? What political people set it off? His narrative is that AFTAB Paraval set it off. But AFTAB wasn't even here.
No. He didn't just. No.
Let TNT get in there. I think the fact that she wasn't able to be on Friday. Let's let TNT have a say.
You know, I'm just responding to Phil. It was all political. This all came from a political send up. The efforts by Fox News, the propaganda machine. Then you had JD.
So you're agreeing with me that the decision to charge the white guy was
the whole thing, the whole reaction, the knee-jerk reaction to a bar fight was political.
You're talking about the charges, people who were charged? Are you talking about?
Let her go, Phil. When you do that, Phil, you discourage people, man.
The town halls, the political motivation behind this, and even the opinion piece. It's just like it's all politically driven. It's not authentic at all. You know, Tarris called this a big nothing burger, but that was just a big red meat burger to me, filled with race baiting, the political trolling, per usual, with the usual suspects of attacking Democrats and black leadership. And for me,
are you saying the guys who were charged with the serious offenses shouldn't have been charged?
We're not saying any of that, Phil. You're trying to move the goalposts, Phil. Ain't nobody talking about that.
That's not what she's saying, Phil. You know that's not what she's saying.
This will be another typical day in Cincinnati. Crime is happening as we speak. Everything doesn't raise to the level of national attention. This was in that same week, there was a mass shooting in New York. Some real stuff that was happening. In that same week, a little kid got ran over and may not be able to walk again. A mother of 5 was shot down in broad daylight. But the selective outrage where I didn't see JD Vance or Bernie Moreno coming having town halls talking about crime in Cincinnati over those incidents. And so they pick and choose. Beyond, we're about to enter September. So it's just like to even still be talking about this, they're winning. You know what I mean? They created a narrative. They made this bigger than it was. They made it racial. It was race baiting and everything in between. And then now we're sitting up here talking about an issue that is like unattainable as far as it's unattainable as far as like eliminating crime. We have to be able to reduce crime, and all the statistics and everything show that crime is reducing, and that's something to be proud of. We should be crediting the police for that, but instead you have
there have been 83 homicides so far this year in Cincinnati.
You have the FOP president who wants to play politics along with everybody else who is trying to like advance their political career and take a situation where the fact says that we're doing better. It's not like there's no room for improvement, but in comparison to previous years, we're doing better. But now it's a problem. And that's a situation where you can't win that fight because it's always going to be crime. There's nothing that anyone can do to eliminate crime. Police officers are.
Yeah, but you can reduce it. You can reduce it.
And that's what she said. Happening. And that's happening through police and community relations. And so people like Iris Rowley and the collaborative agreement, those have helped toward where we are today. It is vital.
They did nothing that collaborative did nothing to reduce crime. I agree. It helped.
It did nothing
it didn't reduce
crime.
Phil,
that's a matter of your opinion about whether you believe the police community relations work that they do improves policing overall. If the community has Phil, will you shut up, Phil, and just let me finish for a second? See, this is exactly, Nathan, what I was worried about. I was saying this is exactly why you got to put a collar and a leash on Phil when we have guests, because dude just don't know how to respect when other people is talking. So
do not treat me like this animal, please.
That's exactly what you need, and a nice little muzzle might work as well.
Buzz his ass.
But you can't say that it didn't have an impact on reducing crime if better relations with the community leads to more witnesses, more people turning in tips that leads to more arrests. That does lead to better policing. That's why narrow-minded thinking like yours doesn't help in this situation, because you are oh so quick to think go in and billy club them to death and stop and frisk people is the only way to reduce crime. And that's why we are where we continue to be, because of antiquated thinking like yours. The collaborative is all about trying to get the community involved and trying to help reduce crime.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the collaborative.
And that is a critical. Well, then if you're very familiar with it, you should be ashamed of what you just said there, because what you just said implies that you don't know jack about the collaborative.
No, I know a lot about the collaborative.
The other thing that I would say to agree entirely with TNT would be to say that this is all political. Look, let's not forget what has a tendency to make things go viral in the first place. Viral videos that are typically those things that hit people politically or emotionally in a place to where it gets people to share it en masse. What got people to share this video from Cincinnati en masse was the fact that it was a group of black people stomping on a white person. A white woman gets punched out. It plays into those racial stereotypes, biases, and fears that people have. And it was amplified for those political reasons by Elon Musk and others. They amplified it politically because it checked off a lot of boxes. It checked off the racial box. It checked off the lawless crime situation in Democratic-run cities. And anybody who wants to deny that politics and race have driven this conversation is just not being honest. And that's the part that angers me about this. Look, a bunch of things can be true at the same time. We can say we need to reduce crime in Cincinnati. Absolutely true. But but saying that doesn't mean that you don't have to deny the political and racial elements that are here. The sharks are out. People are pushing their agendas, whether that's to get rid of Iris Rowley, whether that's to get rid of Aftab Pureval in the mayor's office. Everybody has some sort of political agenda. Hey, if you want to say like the faith leaders and the pastors have some kind of political agenda and coming out, okay, I'll give you that. Everybody is pushing some type of agenda that they want to get across here. And to ignore that and to say that we should be above politics is the height of hypocrisy, because this whole thing is political.
Can I say one thing about this? About like since May, when we've been talking about this, I was talking about Corey Bowman's path to win the mayorship, and there was no clear path for him. And I was like, okay, if he took this approach, but then I never in a million years would have thought that they would take the racial approach to try to win the mayorship. And since that, I never thought, because him being a preacher, someone who's a preacher that has a sheep, and he preaches over these people the gospel of Jesus Christ, and those gospel things are pure in my heart. So when I see somebody who's a preacher come and say, I want to be a mayor, and I was like, okay, I see this man, and he's a Republican, and I've done a lot of work to try to bring black people to the Republican Party. I've done that, and I was rooting for Corey Bowman. But as soon as his brother took this thing and took it racial, I changed my tune. And when I said that the FOP couldn't endorse him, I know that the FOP can do whatever they want. They can endorse him. I was saying outright, and this was an easy way for them to dog whistle this. And if you look at Ken Blackwell's endorsement of Corey Bowman, if you look and you read almost down to the end, it says, and if you look at see what Donald Trump is doing in Washington, D.C., somebody like Corey Bowman being the mayor of Cincinnati, they will be able to bring in the National Guard here and over police black people once again, just like they did in the 1920s when they destroyed Tulsa and all these other places like Wilmington. They had the backing of the government and the federal government. They got to go in there and wipe out these towns, black people's towns, with the government. This is an easy play to combat here. I never thought that they would go the racial card in Cincinnati when it's 50% black and 50% white, and the 50% black in Cincinnati vote. You go pull that in some podunk town that black people don't vote in. You got people who just fought for their freedom coming over in Cincinnati from slavery to freedom and put roots there. And then you're going to try to go the racist trope. I think this might cost the Republican Party. It's going to do more damage for them if they don't stop this crap here in Cincinnati. I think, because I really think it's going to do a lot of damage to them.
It's what they need to get excited. And that's what's the real shame of it all. It's like, that's what it takes to elevate your electorate to get out and vote and vote someone out. That's the best you could do. People, I promise you, 80 to 90% of Cincinnatians is not worried about that fight. You know, you're worried about gas prices that's $3.60. When you go to the grocery store and the groceries are higher than usual, you know what I mean? The rent is too damn high. If you have your home on the mortgage, I mean, we're worried about those things. The last thing that we're caring about is this brawl that happened back in July, you know, and for this man to keep milking it. I mean, and that just goes to show that that's the platform that's as good as it, because if they step into reality, what you're really dealing with, if we're talking politically, is a complete mess. The country is in a complete mess, and they have to find something to distract the electric to be talking about it and getting encouraged to get out over, again, things that really don't matter to everyday people. And let me go back to the community and police relations, how important that is. I will tell you, someone like Iris, no matter what, she's going to be an advocate for the community regardless. No one can stop her voice. No one can stop her advocacy. She's been doing this for over 2 decades, and for free. And so someone that has that much love for community, you can't stop them.
She's not doing it for free now.
No, and she shouldn't be. It's people, Ferguson, all these different cities is seeking her advisory on how to have better police and community relations. Like what was said earlier, there is a mistrust and a fear of police. I'll give you an example of my own daughter. When she was young, like 7 years old, I had noticed that she would like really tense up and start shivering around police. And this, she's grown up in the era of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, seeing that whole trifecta, and her image of police was that they were bad, that they were the bad guys, that they wanted to kill her because of the color of her skin. This is a little girl. And so I hadn't even noticed, like when we would go to the store and a police cruiser could be right in front of the store, she would like clench up and hide behind me. You know what I mean? I had to take her to events like National Nights Out and meet police. And it was this one a black and white officer, and I brought her up to him, and she was hiding behind me again. And I would just tell her these are good police officers, and you know what they do in the community. And it's just those interactions with the community is so vitally important. It's so vitally important to young people whose perspective of police is that you hate us, that you think we're the threats, that you want to kill us. And so now my daughter, she's a freshman in high school now. She's talking. She wants to be a police officer, and I welcome that if that's what she wants to do. So it's like and that's the involvement of where we was some years ago compared to like where we are now, where young people are having a different perspective. But once again, if we don't take into consideration how important police and community relations is to better policing and a safer community, like Phil said, or someone just said, you're not going to, no, Kevin said, you're not going to have that communication between police and community to solve crimes. You're not going to have that recruitment class because they're seeing police as pariahs. It's not because, you know, that they don't want to be held accountable and there's a shortage of police. It's because people don't want to be police officers. You know what I mean? And they're looking at the back. You have to rebuild that brand. And so rebuilding that brand is working together. Along with that, when Iris put that call out to be on the square, I was one of the people that volunteered and went down there. And we was working side by side with the police. You had ROMAC, you had the NAACP, you had representatives from the Reds giving information to these young folks on jobs and scholarships and giving them opportunity, because we know that poverty produces crime. And so when you provide opportunity, you reduce crime. It's the wraparounds. It's all of these things. And so it takes good people. And she didn't rely on the police to say it's just their job to stop all the fighting or whatever that was happening at Government Square. She called on community, like, community, I need you. Come out and volunteer. We'll pay for your parking. Just come out here and help us with our kids, mentor, talk to them. And that's what they did. And they didn't do it for one day. They didn't do it for 2 days, a week. They did it for the whole period until the school year ended and back at it again. So I adamantly disagree with anyone coming after that dear sister, because she has put so much sacrifice of her time and her life to the community, and no disrespect should come her way, because she has been there and she's been a warrior for us. And so I was ready for this guy to come on and talk his stuff, but you way out of line, on that one. She has really made a tremendous impact as it relates to better policing in Cincinnati.
But let's just be honest, though. Let's just be honest that this has been from the beginning, from the lawsuit that on racial profiling that ultimately led to the collaborative agreement. Let's not pretend like Cincinnati police have loved that process from the beginning. They haven't. They've always been put off by this notion of being checked, particularly by the community. So it's never been a kumbaya, I love relationship between Iris or whoever has been responsible for implementing the collaborative agreement and Cincinnati police, because nobody wants to have an accountant standing over their shoulder calling out what they're not doing properly. So there's always going to be a tension that exists there. Who has been the last FOP president ever since the collaborative that has spoken favorably about that process? Who hasn't been resistant? And who hasn't been resistant to that process? There hasn't been an FOP president or a police representative, maybe outside of the chief, some of the chiefs that we've had that have felt like this process was something that they wanted to be a part of or thought was being executed well. Look, the reality is this: Iris is not in the position that she is in to be a friend of the police. She is an accountability partner. And sometimes your accountability partner is the one who stands there and applauds you when you do well, but also gonna check you when you don't do well. And too often, unfortunately, we remember the times that we get checked and we don't remember the times when we get applauded. Now, in Iris's defense, she has complimented the police when they have done well, when they've risen to the occasion. I can tell you that Iris was very complimentary from personal conversations and interviews that I did with the paper of how the police were handling the situations down at Governor Square when the kids were off the chain. Iris gave them credit. She said, hey, in a different day and with different officers, they might have been down there cracking some heads, but these officers showed incredible restraint. People don't remember that. What they remember is the video that gets shown of Iris again, checking and standing up for the community, which is her job. She is the representative there from the community. That is her job. That's the role that she was brought in to do, to consult, right? And so then you want to get mad at her for doing her job, right?
So you're saying when she interfered with that arrest that we saw, she was doing consulting work.
Can we go back to Ken, because I don't want to. That was a good note that we want to leave Kevin on. But Ken, the no confidence. He said there's no confidence after to have peer ball, and therefore it was he has the press releases and he has Fox and he has all these pressers and all the abilities to say the quiet thing out loud. But I think the criminals and the animals, or what you call them, they said the quiet thing out loud about having no confidence in the FOP when they didn't make any 911 phone calls when that bar fight was going on. If they had confidence that the police would come down there and handle things accordingly, they probably would have called 911. So you want to hear some no confidence, those animals and criminals that were what you call them, that were hanging out on the corners that night after the bar let out. And the Russians came out there looking for the fight. They didn't want to call the FOP because they have no confidence that you would come down there and do the right thing. You come down there and start harassing, seeing who's selling what, and like you see now, the white guy's getting no charges, and the black guy's his background's getting because he has some his background. When the white Russian, if you look at his background in 2012. He's got the charges for doing the exact same thing, walking up somebody and trying to fight him over some racial stuff coming out of a bar. You see the 62-year-old has the same charges. But this is what I'm talking about. This is why I wish this Ken guy was on here to answer those questions, because I'm sure any interview that he's went on today has not asked him one of these things, had pushback on one of these things. You talk about no confidence. There's no confidence in the relationship of people who you're trying to disparage other side to get out and vote. Black people in Cincinnati vote, and I'm going to encourage them to get out and vote and make sure that Corey Bowman does not become the next mayor of Cincinnati.
I think that this is so interesting. I got so many thoughts. But, I did have a thought I want to share in terms of like the management of the show. I'm thinking, I want to try something different. When we bring up a topic, I want to make sure, let's do this. Let's let everybody get their spill in at least once, uninterrupted, like that introductory sort of thought on the new topic before anybody gets a second thought in or under talks them. And I say that because I think from the audience perspective, like, they'll at least get a chance to hear what everybody says first, uninterrupted. The crosstalk is going to happen, and we can manage that along the way. You know what I'm saying? So let's make sure everybody gets their spill in before anybody jumps in either underneath them or gets a second thought in. That way the audience can hear from everybody on every topic uninterrupted, and then we can crosstalk and, cannibalize each other after that. Agreed?
Sounds great.
Sound good? So it's just so interesting, but this goes back to my initial thoughts about it. And there were a lot of people pointing fingers about what the police could have been and what they should have did. And I said initially, we don't know. Why are we jumping to conclusions about how many more officers they should have had here or should have had there? This was the first time something like this has happened in a very, really long time. If this was like something that happened 2 or 3 years in a row and we saw the police not really stepping up to the responsibility, that's one thing. But this was sort of like an isolated incident. You had a lot of people that was pointing fingers at the police chief and pointing fingers at AvTab and shoulda, coulda, woulda. And I never thought it was the right approach. But when you do that, it opens the door and creates legitimacy for people like Ken Cobra and others to come in and do what they're saying. Not to say that he wasn't going to do that anyway, but I think that there's a knee-jerk reaction. And again, it's almost like sports. It's like your favorite team doesn't do well. You want to fire the defensive coordinator after 1 year. And I'm like, wait a minute, let's give this person a chance to really show what they can do. And I say the same thing about this incident. There was a whole lot of knee-jerk reactions. They should have had 10 more officers here and 10 more officers there. And I'm like, well, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think it would have stopped anything. It might have did something with the response time, but it only takes a second for somebody to throw a punch and knock somebody out. And I think this is still knee-jerk reactionary city. And I remember going into different shows and seeing people's comment sections, and it's what about the mama and the daddy? Everybody has a knee-jerk reaction rather than kind of sitting back and waiting to see, what the evidence and the information shows us.
Yeah, I think because we live in an outraged society, though, Nathan. I mean, everything that happens, you have to be outraged about it, and you have to have something. You have to have something. I'm not saying you in general. I'm just saying that tends to be the nature of people. They don't wait until all the facts are in. They don't try to do a critical analysis of the situation. It's like as soon as something happened and it becomes a topic of conversation, everybody's got to have a judgment or got to have something to say about it. And for those people who have political leanings, right? Again, that's why I say you cannot set aside the politics. People are sitting back waiting for things to happen so that they can criticize their opponent, right? Let's just keep it real. The people who jumped on AFTAB and the police chief or whomever you want to name immediately out of the gate were already laying in the cut, waiting for hoping something would happen so that they can be critical of somebody that they didn't support in the first place, right? It's like, this is my opportunity to go after Cheryl Long. This is my opportunity to go after Iris. This is another screw I can put in on the mayor. Let's not act like you've got fair arbiters in this situation who don't have axes to grind. And that's part that has to be part of the conversation is what is your agenda and what is your axe to grind behind what you're saying. If I ain't like Iris,
that explains some people. That explains
but what it does, those people who are, for lack of a better term, let's just call them, people who have their agendas, right? They can suck in the common folk who might not have an agenda, but who are trying to figure it out. And depending on your platform and influence that you have over people, you can bring them along because they figure like, hey, man, I know Kevin Aldridge or I know Ken Kober. And so he's speaking this stuff. So I respect what he has to say. So I'm gonna go along with what he's saying. That's why I am adamant about the responsibility that leadership has to speak responsibly. And I think that too often we have too many leaders who just too fly at the mouth and are careless with how they handle these situations because people flow off of what they say. Like it's different if you're a keyboard champion in the chat room and speaking, right? Like you might have your little influence over your circle of friends, but when you're representing like hundreds of thousands of people, you have a responsibility to speak responsibly. Right. And I just don't see enough of that. I'm not saying that there aren't leaders responsibly out there talking about this situation the right way, but I see too many people who are just they're not thinking about what they're saying before they say it, or if they are thinking about it, they're thinking about it with not such good intentions for the better of the community.
And that's one of my problems. I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I have a quick question for Nathan. Nathan, if you're on the highway and you as we all do, go over the speed limit. Let's say you're 75, 78, and you're doing it. And then you look up, I don't know, half mile, quarter mile ahead. You see a police car. Do you just keep going the same speed?
If I'm speeding, I slow down.
Exactly. Because seeing that cop deterred you. That's the whole point. Ken Kober said, and he is correct, that we're about 200 police officers short. And to respond to what you said, Nathan, which is it doesn't matter if the police are there, people are still going to do what they're going to do. Just like you on the highway, when you see that cop, you don't keep speeding, you slow down. The same thing. If they there's no doubt in my mind, if there were visible police cops there at this thing, those guys wouldn't be sitting there stomping that guy in the ground in front of those cops.
As I remember having this conversation. I think it was me on one side and you and Kevin on the other side. As I told you guys then, that is not going to happen. There's a video that was released that happened downtown. The police officer was standing right there, and they're just swinging, and he's standing right there. And I understand the analogy you're trying to make there, but I think it's differently than when you're in a moving vehicle than when you're getting involved in a physical altercation. Because
you're breaking the law, and you see a cop, and you stop doing it.
I'm just telling you, there's a video.
Don't do it.
It happened in Cincinnati. It was a bunch of primarily non-black kids.
You can't take one incident. You can't take one incident, Nathan, and say, "Oh, it doesn't matter if cops are there; they're going to break the law anyway." That's not much of an argument.
Yeah, but Phil, it's a great argument because you're taking one incident, what happened, the so-called brawl, and I'm just comparing it to another incident that happened in Cincinnati. A police officer was standing right there. And when they started swinging, everybody started swinging. The officer came over.
So you're saying having police out in the street doesn't deter crime?
Interact and break them up. They kept fighting, and while the officer was
here's why both of you are right.
Is that what you're saying?
Here's why both of you are right. Because Phil is talking about most law-abiding citizens. He's right. Most law-abiding citizens who care about keeping their job, who care about not going to jail, who think about the fallout of bad choices, what that's going to be on your family and people around you. Most people like that are deterred by police presence. We're the ones who slow down when we see the cops and all of that. What Nathan is referring to are those folks that don't give a damn, who don't really have anything to lose, and who are not going to be deterred.
That's not what I'm referring to at all.
A Cincinnati police. No, I'm just telling you that, like, this is generally what we're talking about.
But that's not what I'm talking about at all.
Well, no. I'm telling you why I think you guys are both right.
Yeah,
whether this is your point of view, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I'm just saying this is why I think you're both right.
Yeah.
I think the larger overall point about the police presence is about the response. I've said many times on this program that police are primarily a responsive unit. They show up.
They're a deterrent as well.
Things have already happened.
They are
when things have already happened. So what more police might have done in that instance was they might have been able to get there quick enough to where the fact that the crowd might not have been able to get
they could have been there before.
No police officer.
Woulda, shoulda.
No,
you can have a police officer in every inch, and it's just like, what are we really saying? You know what I mean? Like,
you're arguing for
you want the over policing of communities and everything for you to feel safe, for you to walk down the street or whatever. It's just like it's not even realistic.
Kevin, are you saying having police on the street or in front of you wherever it does?
Did you just hear what she said? Did you just hear what TNT said?
No. I'm not saying that police are not an effective deterrent, because I think their presence makes a difference for most people. Okay, most people who see a police officer somewhere in the vicinity are probably not going to try anything, because let's just be honest, most people don't want to go to jail. Right? Most people don't.
Even bad guys, stupid guys don't want to go to jail.
Most people don't want to get arrested.
But including people who aren't law-abiding, wouldn't you agree? They don't want to go to jail.
Yeah, but you're missing the point, and you're dragging it away from the example that we're talking about, right? So in general, you are correct, and we all know that. In general, we understand that police can deter. But as I take it back to the so-called brawl, because that's what we were talking about, and I'll make the same point. You could have had a police officer right there, and when people get to swinging, they're going to defend themselves, and
they would have stopped. They have stomped the guy. Would they all have gone stomped the guy? Do you think even those guys?
Yes, it would have happened.
And I would have stomped the guy in front of the cop.
Yes, he would have got stomped. And I give you the example of.
Well, none of us can say that definitively. None of us can say that. None of us can say that definitively.
We don't like it. I can say it definitively without a shadow of a doubt, because it just happened. It just happened. It was a group of primarily non-black guys. It was young white guys in downtown Cincinnati. And somebody threw a punch and they all got to swing it. And the officer was right there. And he got stomped out, knocked down. They jumped on top of him.
Yeah.
The police are trying to pull him off. So it goes back to the point I told you. In this Cincinnati brawl, no amount of officers can stop somebody from getting into a fight or getting
What about stomping on a guy on the ground? They can't stop that.
Nope. In the example I'm talking about, I can show you the video. It
No, I
happened
know.
in
I
Cincinnati,
see that one
downtown
example. We're
Cincinnati.
talking about the brawl. Are you
Yeah,
saying
you guys are
saying that if you
talking
had-
past
stomp
each other.
that guy
I'm
over and
telling
over?
You guys are talking past each other, missing. I think. Look,
No.
the reality is the reality. Let me finish, Nathan. The reality is what you're saying is true.
I know.
They could not have stopped it, right? And that's why I keep emphasizing the response aspect of it. So if there was a police officer there, I won't even go so far as to say stop. I'll say they could have intervened, right? That doesn't mean that blows still wouldn't have been thrown, that people still wouldn't have been stopped, but they would have at least been there to try to intervene, right? That is a response, not a prevention, which goes to my point about police being most largely, they're responsive. They show up after stuff has happened, right? And so essentially what you guys are saying is both right, while I would venture to say that none of us can say 100% what would have happened if more police officers had been there. Would it have gotten as bad as it did? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know, because that wasn't the reality. So that sort of speculation is almost irrelevant at this point, because it's like you're trying to do a hypothetical on something that didn't happen.
Yes,
right.
It's not a hypothetical. This happens all the time. This is very practical and common sense. And this is why I say it's unfair. And it was always unfair to start pointing fingers at the police chief and where AVTAB was and what the city manager does. Because there is no way in the world that any of those individuals wanted something like that to happen. But that's what people did. They started pointing fingers and the police chief should have did this. And I'm like, wait a minute. You can have an officer standing right there. And if somebody gets into it, they're going to get into it. And the best case example is what happened. The video is out there right now. It was a bunch of about maybe a dozen kids and young people, and they get to fighting right down there next to, it looks like it was on the banks. The officers were right there. They tried their best to come in, but people still got slammed to the ground and knocked down and piled onto it. And that was the point I was making from day one, when people were like, oh, AVTAB should have had more officers. What's that going to do? All that's going to do is make people feel like,
we at least agree on this, Nathan?
All that's going to do is make people feel like it's they're trying to have a good time in a police state. It's going to feel uncomfortable.
I want to go back.
Maybe not. It just depends on how much of a police presence you're talking about. I mean, I think we can at least maybe agree on this. And what difference would it have made? Having officers at least there, even if they weren't able to stop it, or they weren't able to keep it from escalating, it's better to have officers who were there who might even be able to see how some of the things shook out, versus officers showing up 6 to 8 minutes later trying to figure out what the hell went on and how things happened. Like at least having people who are close, who can pull people aside, get witnesses, gather information. I think we all have to agree that would be a better outcome than ultimately what we got. And you might have a little bit more clarity and a little bit more information about the situation than what we had with cops showing up 6 to 8 minutes after the fact and trying to figure out what's going on.
That's what I was going to say too, Kevin. Root causes, because everybody's talking about what happened after the initial smack or after. If we go to root causes of the Russian being overserved, coming out the bar, trying to fight and kicking cars and stuff like that. If there would have been a police officer on duty right there, I'm going to agree with you a little bit, Phil. If there would have been a police officer right there, that guy could have potentially been charged with disorderly conduct, exactly what he's being charged for now. And then all this stuff would have been not potentially went that far. So I'll agree. If a police would have been there right then, but the root cause was this idiot comes out of the bar starting a bar fight with people, and people are trying to they're trying to go over the aftermath. If we get to the root cause and we say this is the root cause, the Russian came out, disorderly conduct, tried to fight a man with special needs. His friends interjected. The dude came over with more of his friends. These are eyewitness accounts. And then you get the body cam of the police officers coming 8 minutes later and taking the reports of just one side. And then and it was just a horrible display. Oh yeah. That was, if you watch that body cam footage, we get to the root causes of this thing. And I believe that when we get to the trial, I believe that this is going to be after these swing and misses from the Republican Party, once the Corey Bowman gets his butt just skull drug, when we get to the root causes after this trial comes out, they're going to say the Russian shouldn't have done any of this kind of stuff, and none of this would have happened. And then we can get back to regular life, because this has been overblown, over politicized. That's why. And then the Ken Kober coming on here and making and blaming Avtab. That's why he wrote his no confidence dog whistle. You know what I mean? Let's get back to some real stuff.
I'm with you on all that, but that was the point I was making from the beginning. It was overblown from the beginning. All the questions, where was Avtab? He should have been here. The police chief should have did this. He should have had more. I'm like, it was overblown from the beginning. From the beginning, it was overblown. But let's move on. Let's talk about Snoop Dogg, aka Lap Dog. That's what I call him now, Lap Dog. He's gone viral because he was on a podcast. I haven't seen the podcast, I must admit. So I'm sure there's a lot he said that was not this. And it could be entirely possible that people are seizing upon like one thing he said and possibly even taking it out of context. That could all be true. But for the sake of a conversation, let's go with what we know. So Snoop Dogg, apparently in this podcast, he was lamenting the fact that, I guess he was talking about his grandkids. He took his grandkids to see a children's movie, and there was an LGBTQ character. And apparently his grandkids asked him some questions and he felt stuck. And he said that basically he feels scared now to go to certain kids' movies because he don't know there's going to be LGBTQ characters, and he doesn't know what to say to his grandkids. Some people are saying that this is straight up homophobic behavior. Some are saying that, he's got the concerns of a lot of parents out here. What do you think?
Well, I think, well, first of all, I think that it sounds like a Snoop problem, that his inability to answer the question in an adult manner for a child, I think is stunning to me that he would struggle to be able to articulate that in an age appropriate way, to his grandchildren. I mean, I think people who say that genuinely are struggling with their own biases or issues as it relates to this topic, because it's a fairly simple conversation to me. And I get that maybe for many parents, having those sexual conversations or the birds and the bees types things, maybe that's more difficult than you think. But in these days and times where the LGBTQ community is out there and growing and prevalent and present, as a parent, you better develop the ability or a vocabulary to be able to talk about this type of thing, because quite frankly, it's not going anywhere. And people are not going anywhere, are not going to stop standing for their rights or representation. And so I think that for those folks who are uncomfortable with it and struggle with it, hey, this is the way of the world. And I mean, Snoop can talk about everything else. He talked about everything else on his rap and everything else. So I mean, you can talk about, you don't have no problem talking about the Chronic and everything else. You mean to tell me you can't put some words together to spit some bars at them, throw some lyrics at them, do something. Come on, bro. That's a week out.
Yeah, that seemed like a real weak position. Like he should be able to be able to explain to his kids, like Kevin said, what is reality. What is he going to do? Keep his kids from going to school, keep his kids from, being out in the world, because that's out in the world. Is it life imitating art or art imitating life? And so, if you have cartoons and they're showing, that's almost in a way helping parents with questions that your kids may already be having because they've seen it in real life. Like, oh, why does my friend George have two daddies? You know what I mean? Or why is, my friend Becky, have a black daddy and a white mom? I mean, they see things, what I'm saying? This is kind of like your opportunity to, explain that there's different types of families. It's just all types of families. Everything isn't always the traditional. It's all types of families. And the best thing about it, that they love each other. You know what I mean? So it's not that hard. I think people read way too deep into it, and even into the sexual portion of it. It's not about that. It's about, a family nucleus. Why does, my friend have, only one mother? You know what I mean? I mean, it's all types of different types of families. And so we shouldn't steer away from that, because you're going to have to face that reality, because that is the reality of the world at some point.
Yeah, I know we all grow up, and my first words I've ever heard Snoop Dogg say was, some of the first words is, "Women ain't nothing but H's," and and then deep cut. I mean, so this is a young age I heard this. It shaped a lot of the way that I treated women. I'll be honest about that. It's through those rap lyrics and the Chronic, and and I had to learn. It did not help my brain development to hear Snoop Dogg rap those words in my head, and that's how I went on the treat. And it took. But I'm saying Snoop is picking and choosing, and I don't know if they got to him. I don't know, because he's got these Olympic endorsements. And then he's going to these Trump things and talking to these people, and they have this agenda to create more babies. And him speaking out on the LGBTQ community could be his way of endorsing, either backing what they're saying. I don't know. It's kind of weird for me to even put them together, to hear Snoop come out against anybody except love, because that's just not who I know Snoop to be. But from when I hear the influence, when he's talking about kids, influence people might have on kids, look at all the influences you personally had on people's upbringing, Snoop. And not just, I mean, if you're going to go back and say, okay, I see what's going on with the LGBTQ community, let me go back and let's talk to the youth who I might have, damaged with my youthfulness and my misuse of media, then cool. But to go in and say, forget about what I did and the generations that I screwed up, let's figure out the next generation. I don't get that part.
Phil, your thoughts?
To be honest, guys, I have no interest in the issue.
Okay. That's fair. You know what? Let me play a clip for you. I got a clip of Snoop talking about this. That is fair.
I took my grandson to see what was the movie with Buzz Light?
Toy Story?
Not that one, but
the new Buzz. The Lightyear. I think it's called Lightyear.
Yeah, Keke Palmer's in that movie.
Okay.
She plays like the daughter. So we watching it, and the lady, which is Kiki's mama, they move on into the space years. They move down the line. They're like, man, she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, shit. I didn't come in for this shit. I just came to watch the goddamn movie. Hey, man, watch the movie. They just said she had a baby. They both women. How did she have a baby? Shh. The movie ain't over with. So it's like, fuck me. I'm scared to go to the movies now. Like, y'all throwing me in the middle of shit that I don't have an answer for.
He is hilarious, man. See, that gives a little levity to it. So, I think, let me pause this. I think that is a legitimate concern that some people have. Like, I agree with everything everybody said. I get where you're coming from, including Phil. Phil's like, I don't care about this, but I think it's a legitimate concern that people have because they don't know. I think that, and I could be wrong about this, I think some people are afraid to just talk about LGBTQ with their children because they're afraid if they do that, then somehow that'll make them that. Like, yes. Oh, you can be with a guy? I never thought about that before. And I just don't think I don't think that's how being homosexual or LGBTQ works at all, right? If that's my son, I just tell him. Some people live like that. Really, what are they called? Well, they call him, and I tell him, and that's it. And typically, he just moves on to the next thing because they're just curious for a second, and they just move on to the next thing. But I think it's honest in the sense of him being kind of stuck. But I agree with everybody else. Like you are a gangster rapper. You did all kind of stuff and did all kind of things. And this kind of thing bothers you at 53 years of age. It's like, man, get off of it.
And Nathan, in the background of that video, the song was "Murder."
Yeah, I was gonna say that too.
That was
it's okay to
video.
program. I mean, but in the same they say the context is you can program that murder, but you can't talk about the LGBT community loving each other. I mean, that's
it could be that he's going to have a difficult time describing and talking about his own, entertainment history with his kids. It could be that because as you get older, you change and you don't see things the same way. But
I bet he wouldn't have a problem talking about that, Nathan. I mean, I don't think Snoop would have a problem at all talking about his decisions to rap about what he rapped about. I think you hit on a very strong point about what the mentality is in this country right now. I think amongst a lot of people who struggle with this. Look, it cannot be your lifestyle of choice. You cannot agree with it, right? Your people are totally within their purview. It's a free country. You can believe and think whatever it is that you want to think about whatever. But this notion of, hey, if we talk about this, it might make my kid that, I think is a very real fear. The other thing I think that is valid is sort of what are the age appropriate content, right? And I'm not talking about visualizing having LGBTQ characters represented. I'm even talking about, okay, so if I'm watching a cartoon and it's about, people having babies or whatever, if it was a heterosexual couple, a kid might lean over to you and ask you like how babies are made. Like, what are you going to say in that situation? Now, is it any different because it's an LGBTQ couple to talk about having a baby? Now, that's a little extra layer. It's a few more things that you have to answer. But I guess the overarching question is having babies, is that age appropriate for like content for like a cartoon, right? And if it's good enough for heterosexual couples, why would it not be? If you think that a heterosexual couple talking about having a baby is age appropriate content for a cartoon, then why would that not be age appropriate content for LGBTQ?
Because people are going to say that's natural. That's what people are going to say is natural. Heterosexual couple, they have babies, they have intercourse. That's natural. A lot of people are going to still look at LGBTQ as being unnatural, and so it becomes more of a difficult conversation. But
if you got a young kid, and you're uncomfortable about having that birds and bees conversation, what you gonna tell them? The stork brought it, right? Like some parents make up crazy stuff like that to pacify and satisfy a kid when they don't want to give them an age appropriate or an answer that they're not prepared to accept at a certain age. So if Snoop was like, I mean, he could have did that. The stork brought it, right? So if you feel like the conversation and the content ain't age appropriate, do what you always do. You lie to kids. You tell them something to satisfy until they get to an age where they're appropriate to understand the heavier things that you're trying to explain to them. To me, it's not that complex. We make it complex when you add in the LGBTQ element that you don't agree with. And that is really what's at the heart of it, is how do you talk to your kids about things you don't agree with?
I agree with the person on the chat, Vanita, when she says it's all about a conversation. If you do not make a big deal out of it, they will not either. And that's just kind of put a period on that. But what also our good friend Snoop Dogg could have done, he could have invited his good friend Debrat, who is lesbian, is married, and just had a baby. She's the one that's carrying the baby. And if he couldn't explain it, maybe she could have explained, their family dynamic or whatnot, and just to see how loving and natural that is for them. And so I just find it really, really, bizarre for someone that is so explicit in a lot of ways. And like some of you said, maybe have to explain the reason why he's famous and the lyrics and the things he's said in the past. And he should be more worried and concerned about that. But this conversation, it just plays into that whole stereotype and narrative of just like homophobic and fear of lesbians and wanting this class of people to just disappear or be silent or invisible. And they have a right to live their life like everybody else. I tell this story all the time. When I was young, I was raised in a very religious household, 7-day Adventist. I had preachers that would say it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. And so, very young, it was ingrained in me that, that wasn't right. Being gay, being lesbian, that wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes if I see it, I'd be like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like, and all along, I had an auntie that was lesbian, my favorite auntie. And, it could have been somebody walking down the street and my response like that, and having to be in the closet on these things in her life, that could have really offended her, made her sad, made her feel even more like I can never come out. And I hate that. I hate it to my core. And so when I was able to be more open-minded, and when she did come out, I felt so bad. I felt so bad that I could have responded that way instead of being more. So my main point is just that at whatever age, it's really important, because kids can be cruel. To talk to your kids and explain to them and help them be good humans, help them have humanity, help them care and love about people in general, no matter what. And they don't have to agree with everything people do, but we should allow people the right to live their lives, because we only get
that
one.
was a great analogy about the brat. I want to speak on Brittany Griner calls herself Pops. So my son sent me a thing, and he's like, yeah, I'll call Pops in my household, and I'm going to call myself Pops. So I have to admit, when I saw Brittany Griner call herself Pops, I said, I don't no longer want to be called Pops anymore. I said, call me Paw. Call me something else, because those are my insecurities or whatever kind of prejudices or whatever that I have. If they're going to hijack, if Brittany Griner is going to be able to call herself Pops, a term that I earned, I'm like, call me something else, because I'm not sharing that. Call me Paw. Call me something else. Don't call me Pops anymore. So I can see kind of where Snoop's, if that makes any sense, where his insecurities or his biases might come out in just his conversations in life of people, of just being real. And that's a part of how I can understand that, because I don't want to share those names with that, and I could be wrong, but that's
so I want to highlight Shahira's comment that she says in here, because I think this is another good conversation point. She says, I think he was more frustrated that in the moment he just wanted to enjoy the movie with his grandson, and suddenly this popped up and he wasn't ready to have the conversation in the middle of the movie theater. I'm sure he had to think, or I'm sure he'd think to have Brat come by and explain later, but in the moment he was just frustrated. He thought it'd be a simple moment to enjoy a movie with his grandson, and it turned into something totally different. And so while I feel the sentiment that's being shared there, I think this is part of this conversation that we have to recognize, those of us in the heterosexual community who are not a part of the LGBTQ community. Like this notion of, oh, I was just coming to sit and enjoy this movie until this gay stuff popped up. And now that's disrupting my peace and my enjoyment of the movie. Like that's almost how that comes off. Like, because this representation now makes me feel uncomfortable and I have to explain it. Like it's interrupting my joy, it's interrupting my moment, it's interrupting my peace. And I think that that's a very bad and negative message to send to people who are in different communities. And I'm sensitive to this as a African American, because it happens to us in other ways where people feel put off when they have to deal or change their situation for our culture. They feel put off as if we're disturbing their peace because they have to accommodate us now. And that's kind of what that feels like to me, that sentiment that, oh man, I just came in here to enjoy this movie, and now because of this gay stuff, I got to have a conversation I wasn't ready to have. And if you just kind of sit back and listen to that and think about how that sounds, right? That's a disturbing thought in these days and times in our society. And I think it's what people in the LGBTQ community have to continuously fight against, is this notion that their representation is interrupting your peace in some way, shape, or form.
It's that, and also, I'm glad I went back, and I would encourage people to go back and like find some clips on YouTube, because when I read the text, I got a different vibe than when I watched the video, right? And then you've got different media channels with different agendas that are trying to take what he said and they're trying to twist it as if he's anti this. But clearly that's not what he was coming at. Like, it was much more lighthearted, and I think in genuine response that he had than in a lot of the headlines, and they were kind of running with it like, oh look, Snoop is anti-LGBTQ, which I think is dangerous for the LGBTQ community, because too many people look at them as the other. And here in Cincinnati, we talking about murders, but we rarely talk about the fact you have some transgender people who lost their life. We act like that never happened in Cincinnati. Is because their lives are devalued because they're the other. They don't matter as much. And I think that's why these conversations, despite what Phil might think, are very important. So we
No. I'm not. I wasn't saying it wasn't important. It's not something that I have a particular feeling or belief about. I wasn't minimizing the importance.
I had to pull you in somehow. And just to underscore the importance of it, like, we need to make sure that all Americans, I don't care what your sexual orientation is, that you feel like you're a part of everything, that you're just as valid and just as real and just as valuable as everybody else. Because
but you know what? But I'm not gonna let Snoop off the hook to say that what he said wasn't political. Okay, because first of all, he didn't have to say it, right? Like, he's sharing an anecdote, and the fact that he felt it necessary to share that says something in and of itself, right? Like, most of the time we don't get on and we don't talk about stuff, especially on that platform. Now, maybe I'm not sure like if what question he might have got asked that led to that. But I'm not gonna sit back and say, oh, it was all innocent. He wasn't trying to make a political statement. I'm not saying Snoop is homophobic, but I'm definitely saying that paying attention to why he said it and what he said is important. And I go back to what I said earlier about just that dangerous mentality that sometimes heterosexuals can have in terms of a sense of entitlement. Of like, I'm entitled to go to a movie and not have to deal with this, and not have to feel like I need to answer these questions even in that moment. Like, when you really sit back and think about that mindset, again, and maybe he's not homophobic. If I was going to be critical of anything that Snoop would say, I would say, think about what you say, bro, before you say it, and how it's going to be interpreted. Because if you go out there and you present what you present, like how you present it, you open yourself up to that type of criticism if you don't word it more carefully.
Can I share something based on your conversations?
Sure.
First of all, I happen, now that I'm listening to this, I don't know how old his grandson was. I don't think the article mentioned that, but especially if it was a very young child, I would have the same reaction that he did. But there's something I think that Tarris pointed out, or maybe somebody else did, that, and I don't know the history. I don't know the guy. I don't know his music and stuff. But I think you said there was some song playing in the background that talked about murder, and that I assume he's done musical stuff that has some pretty rough topics in that kind of violence or something. Is that fair to say?
He's a trip. He's a gangster.
Okay, he's a gangster. Okay.
Yeah. He's a crip.
And what that reminded me of, particularly when Tarris pointed that out about it, that, yeah, okay, I agree with what he's saying there, but there seems to be an imbalance okay, in terms of what is important and what is not so important. And I tell you what it reminded me of. I'm in this men's Bible study group, and these are great guys, okay? Great guys, love them. But one of them, this was just after that New York City election where they elected that Muslim guy who's going to win the general. You know what I'm talking about? He won the
The
Democratic
Muslim
primary.
guy.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is I'm
Worse
with these
than me.
guys. Pardon me?
No, go ahead.
I'm with these
What's that,
guys.
Madonna?
I'm with these guys, and one of them, a good guy, he says, I'm very, very concerned about a Muslim being in that position. It's something we need to pray about. Blah blah blah, that kind of thing. And what I thought about was the guy in terms of what's really important. The guy who he beat, Andrew Cuomo, had to resign as governor because he was sexually harassing women in his office. He was essentially using his power to try to force women to have sex with him. And it's like, well, yeah, do I feel that comfortable with a Muslim? Maybe not. But what's more important? Do you want a guy who has that kind of a history, running the city? So anyway, maybe that seems a little to some of you off the subject, but I think it does bring up the point about when you're in these situations, what is the most important thing?
So why would you be uncomfortable with a Muslim?
Well, let's put it this way. Maybe I should have said these guys were uncomfortable more than me. These guys, because of the fact that we believe in the Bible and blah blah blah, the Christian Bible or the Jewish and Christian Bible, whatever you want to call it, and Islam, is contrary to that. That was the point they were making. But we're
supposed to have a separation of church and state in politics, right? You know why people? You know why people are scared. You know why people?
You misunderstand what I'm saying. I totally believe in separation of church and state as far as government action goes. But if I or one of those other guys chooses not to vote for somebody because he's a Muslim, that has nothing to do with separation of church and state. That's an individual voter preference. And all I was saying,
racism.
You know what I would tell your friends, Phil?
Based in racism and based in religious bigotry.
I'm telling you,
I'm
telling you guys myself that even though I didn't get into the discussion, though I might if it comes up again, that in a way they're focusing on my relationship with God or something, but they're ignoring the fact that this guy has done some pretty horrendous things. That was my only point.
Yeah.
I get, so you're saying that I get your point. It's like their fear of the unknown, right? What did JFK say? You got nothing to fear but fear itself. I think he said that, or somebody said it. Yeah, their fear of the unknown. And then, after going through 9/11 and the aftermath in Afghanistan, there was a lot of anti-Muslim propaganda and sentiment that was injected into the bloodstream of America, which is already full of it anyway. So I get what you're saying. Like they have more fear of the unknown from a Muslim guy than a guy who has sexually assaulted women in office. And I understand the point you're trying to make, but this is America. Look at who's in the White House right now.
And I think that point, what I find real interesting along those same lines is, if you've been reading about the Defense Secretary Hegseth, he goes to this church that is by this, frankly, sounds crazy, but very prominent pastor. Apparently, he's got a lot of churches. His last name is Wilson. He's the so-called Christian nationalist.
Jeez.
No, yeah. And this pastor who Hegseth is his pastor, he didn't think women should be able to vote. That's where he is. Okay.
That's where we're headed.
But what really gets me is, Hegseth, I don't know if you know this, but he has now instituted Christian religious services in the Pentagon. Okay. Now you can say, well, you don't have to go. Yeah, but guess what? The boss is putting on this service. You better go. And the reason I point, and I could say this about Marjorie Taylor Greene and all the people around Trump, they're all always praising Jesus. But at the same time, they're deporting people who haven't done anything, have no criminal record. They're blacklisting law firms. They're going after Trump's enemies. So to me, that just brings up the same kind of hypocrisy, that these are people who claim to be Bible believers, and yet their actions are totally against it. It's like Jesus said to the Pharisees, you're a bunch of whitewashed tombs. Good looking on the outside, but a lot of dead men's bones on the inside.
Old dry bones. Old dry bones.
There's a there's a social media platform. They're probably on YouTube and Instagram. I saw them on Instagram. They're called The Good Liars. And what they do is they go to like MAGA events and they ask people questions. And I kid you not, they asked a couple of people. They happen to be white. They had MAGA hats on, clearly Trump supporters. And they asked them, would they deport Jesus? And a woman said with a straight face, if he's here illegally, he said, Jesus? And she said, yeah, he should be here illegally. That tells you where we are right now.
The Christian nationalists, Christian nationalists. I've done some like a little research. I'm glad, Phil, man. I'm glad you spoke up, man. If you would have sat there and not said anything about this situation, we never would have got to this important topic right here of Christian nationalism.
It's the least
great journalism. Great journalism. But the Christian nationalists. You want to, Kevin? What you say?
No, I was just going to tell Nathan that that's no surprise because it's biblical. Jesus said, "If you do it to the least of these, you do it to me." So if you would do it to the least, you would do it to Jesus. So that's no surprise that people would have that outlook.
The Christian nationalist preachers, like he was talking about, who hedged that, and I'm waiting to see if Corey Bowman is a part of that fold, because if he is a part of that fold, it's all going to work out just fine. Those Christian nationalists, they believe that the United States of America is the chosen place, and Christianity is the chosen place for
a Christian nation. That's the term they use.
It supersedes anything else as long as you're Christian. If you claim Christianity, but I believe that if they use that platform and they bring more people into Christianity. And then they start breaking Christianity down into, and they really start working the Bible the way it's supposed to be worked. And they really start breaking down lineage and who begot who and who begot who. And they start breaking these tribes down, and they see that the tribe of Judah and Solomon and David are all descendants of people who in Cincinnati who they're trying to go after right now. And they see all this coming back into, and the prophecy comes back to them. There was a guy at that Vivek Ramaswamy rally who broke it down beautifully. And I watch it over and over. And he says, in Deuteronomy, what you've done to us will be done to you. And I believe that's their biggest fear. So these white Christian nationalists that are thinking it's going to over supersede, once you say you don't want to have a revival and you don't want to awaken the spirit of the one of let's see, you pray to your God and we pay to ours. And we see, and we just see, because you guys, that group relies on greed and lies and white supremacy and all the things that are short-lived. When Black people, we have our inner communicational things that we got to take care of amongst ourselves without having white supremacy constantly on our neck. And with this white Christian nationalist preacher stuff, bring it on, because I welcome this cult, because you might have a little bit of leeway, but in the long run, as prophecy comes out, you are going to be the ones who are going to be under what you're trying to do to somebody will be done to you.
Can I just share one thing? There's a story today you guys ought to read in the Washington Post. It's about the ICE recruiting videos, because ICE is going to be the 15th largest army in the world when all the funding goes through. Okay. And these videos, I haven't seen them. I read the story. They got scripture all through them. They got Trump, they got scripture, and they're basically communicating. They have the one where Kevin can probably help me with this. It's Isaiah, where I'm available, God, I'm here, whatever. Send me. Yeah. Okay. They have all these scriptures as part of these recruiting videos. They're basically saying we're doing God's work here. And it's anyway,
which God though? Which God? Because if I'm the opportunity, if I ever get a chance to interview Corey Bowman, I'm going to ask him, what color is Jesus Christ, this Savior who you believe in and you built your rock on? What color is he? You're building your rock on. Is he a white man? Or is he a black man? You tell me, what Jesus do you serve? That's what I want to know. And if he can't come with you, well, what does it matter? What does it matter? What does it matter?
Cordonia gonna say he's white.
He might be a little Palestinian. I know he came up in this area.
You know what he's gonna say.
The-
You know what he's gonna say. But that's either here or there. You know, one of the things I do remember at churches, what the pastor would say, there's a lot of people that come to church and everybody ain't going to heaven. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, it's a lot of so-called Christians, but then there's a lot of church folks, and I just equate them to church folks. You're not real Christians. You don't abide by the scripture and what it really means. And if you did, you would not be okay with a lot of things that's happening right now. You don't believe in the Constitution. That's separate. You know what I mean? But, you know, constitutionally, our rights and everything being trampled on, the over execution of authority of a certain branch of government, all of this is playing in real time. None of this is normal. And the mere fact that, you know, a lot of people have capitulated to the point where these things are happening. And it's going to take a long time to reverse a lot of this, but I do see a light at the end of the tunnel, because this is all temporary. And really, it's just the electric and good people that know better, good people that's living their everyday lives, like I said earlier, that is, you know, going to be impacted by the policies, the bad policies, and the horrible rhetoric from the top. A lot of people might think it's funny, but it's not funny when your household is struggling. It's not funny when you're losing your home and everything else. And so there's going to be repercussions to pay. And that's why right now they're nationwide trying to, you know, orchestrate and reconstruct the maps and do all of this gerrymandering. And we need to be paying attention, keeping our eyes on the ball, and not be distracted by the brawls. That means absolutely nothing to nobody. And be right on point, registering people to vote, you know, being informed, knowing when election day is, and ready to enact our power, because now they're attacking our power. They've already, you know, dismantled the legislative branch, who this Congress is a do nothing Congress, and the Supreme Court is at the whim of leaning heavily on the other side. They may not do anything if it goes to them. And then you have the executive branch. You have an attorney general that's not going to hold anyone accountable, and the FBI director that's not going to hold any accountable. This is a lawless presidency that will do and is doing whatever he wants. And so the last power he wants to take is from you, the people. So it's on you to stay woke, I guess you could say, be abreast of what's going on politically. Don't fall for the political hacks that's wanting to race bait you into issues and things that don't matter for real. The things that really do matter, that affect your everyday life, stay on that. And remember to hold those people accountable that is making your life harder, when their job is to make our lives better. They serve us. We are their boss. They are paid by our tax
I think
dollars.
that, going back to heaven for a second, I agree with everything you just said, TNT. I'm glad you made the point. But going back to heaven for a second, I think there's going to be a lot of disappointment. It's going to be a lot of disappointment when people get to heaven, because you're going to get to heaven and realize that the billionaires own everything there too, and private equity owns everything there too. You think the rent is high here? Wait till you get to heaven. It's quadruple the rent up there. So I'm just preparing you.
Where is your theology?
I'm going to ignore that.
Where is your
I'm going to ignore that
theology
completely
coming from?
sacrilegious analysis
I'm
of
just
heaven that
preparing
you
you.
just gave right there.
If you
David.
think that
That is the
gasoline,
most shocking I've heard.
if you think that gasoline is high now, wait till you get to heaven. It's through the clouds.
Hey, here's what I would say to tack on, and I think it comes down to a couple simple concepts, right? Like the Christian nationalists or whoever you want to say, the Bible is simple. You can tell a tree by the fruit it bears, right? Look at the work, look at the fruit, regardless of what anybody says. Look at the product of what they do. I don't care. That's at any level, whether you're talking about government, media, whatever you want to put it on. If you claim to be a follower of Christ, of God, judge those individuals by their fruits, not by what they say. The other thing is quite simply, you can't be cold-hearted, incompassionate, and not show love for people, and also be crying that you you know God, because the Bible is very clear that God is love. One cannot say they hate their brother and they love God. Anybody who would say that is a liar. Don't get mad at me. That's what the Bible say. If you believe in such things. So you can't love God whom you have not seen and hate on your brother that you see every day. And you got a lot of people who claiming Christ, who claiming they love God, but dogging their brother out every single day. So to me, it comes that simple. I look at what you do, not what you say, and I look at how you treat other people. And that's
real
what
quick. Last question: burning the flag. Our president just signed an executive order. He says it is beyond distasteful. He said it should be illegal and not free speech to burn a flag. Hours after he did that, maybe a day after he did that, right across the street from the White House, a 20-year veteran burned the flag and he was arrested. What do you think? It was a
Whoa! I didn't know this. He was arrested under
He
what
was arrested
crime?
on the spot. He was arrested on the
Do you know
spot.
what he was charged with?
I do not know what he was charged
Trump
with, but he was
executive
arrested
order.
on the spot.
Now that you can't arrest somebody based on executive order. I'm just
Well,
curious.
Under democry, you can't, but under autocracy and dictatorship, you can. And he was
Yeah, I
arrested.
know, but I'm just saying practically. I'm curious about it. But I mean, the truth is, as I think you guys know, I believe the case was a Supreme Court case. I think it was called Brandenburg, and I remember reading in law school. Okay, where basically it was and I thought it was a wonderful decision because this guy, was burning the flag, and they had a law against it, this and that, and
it's Texas
with the
versus
court,
Johnson.
Yeah, Texas versus Johnson.
was that it? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought it was
1989
Brandenburg's another one.
Wow,
Sorry,
this
but
Brandenburg.
the point is that what I thought was a wonderful decision at the time, and I still do, what the court was saying, that the right of free speech is not for people you agree with. It's for the most hated people. Okay, that's the whole point. It isn't by majority. And I did this little podcast the other day where I was talking about the incident in Skokie, Illinois, which is about 30 years ago. Do you guys know what I'm referring to? The Nazis party had planned this big march in Skokie, Illinois. Now, I think it was the 80s. The reason they did it in Skokie, Illinois is because for whatever reason, there are more Holocaust survivors in Skokie than anywhere else in the country. So that's where the Nazis planned their march. And, it was, they wouldn't let them march, wouldn't let them have a permit. And the one guy who defended them was a guy with the ACLU. His name was David Goldberger. He's a Jewish guy, but he fought for their right all the way to U.S. Supreme Court to have that march. And I think that is because he said that all of our liberties, our constitutional liberties, are at risk if we say this group can't speak or can't march or whatever. So I think that's a powerful statement about what the First Amendment is all about. And flag burning certainly falls under the First Amendment.
Yeah, they can't arrest him simply for burning the flag for all the reasons that Phil just said. Now, what they can try to do is they can try to say if somehow the flag burning violated some other type of laws that surrounded it, and these are probably the types of things that they're looking for. Like if I'm burning the flag and that's somehow inciting or causes some other type of property damage or something that they can pin on you surrounding it, they won't say that it's directly related to the flag burning, but they'll try to make it, some other trumped up charge around it. I think
it was a fire in a public park. That's what he was arrested for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right. So that's what it is. So they won't directly say that it was flag burning. And even if it was, I wouldn't put it past Trump. Like one of the things that this guy is notable for doing, he's one of those guys that's like, do it now, ask for permission later, or apologize later. It's like he'll go ahead and do things that might be against the Constitution or against the law, and he'll do like he used to do all of the contractors that work for him. Hey, if you want your money, take me to court and sue me. Hey, if you want to prove this is unconstitutional or illegal, go to court and try to prove it. In the meantime, he's ruining people's lives and all sorts of other things. It doesn't matter to him. He's not about trying to stick to laws like a traditional president or like a traditional politician would. This guy does not play by the rules, and he doesn't care.
I think I come up with a new term. It's not a nothing burger inside here. It's a MAGA burger. A MAGA burger. It's what they feed these low-hanging fruit that want to eat just anything they're gonna throw out to him. Like that no confidence bill is a MAGA burger. He threw it out there to their low-hanging voter base to try to chomp up on something. This executive order for not burning the flag is a Donald Trump nothing burger, MAGA burger. He's gonna throw out there to his base. And they're like, oh, you hear it's a crime we're gonna be centric about the flag. America, yeah, like Gulf of America. He's planting the seed of American pride. It's not legal. I think it's freedom of speech. You can burn flag if you want to, but what Donald Trump is attempting to do is to plant the seed of pride of America. It's illegal even if it's illegal to burn a flag. It's illegal to call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of Mexico. It's the Gulf of America. It's those type of things. It's a MAGA burger.
I just got to say this, Tarris, and of course you're right, and I love the fact that you're calling out, Corey Bowman, and that you haven't really said him, but you said J.D. Vance, and you've talked about Republicans playing the race card here in Cincinnati. But I just got to ask you, bro. I mean, how do you feel about birtherism and Barack Obama? That was all the same. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats with Haitian people. That was all the same.
The birther issue was brought up by Hillary Clinton first.
And it was ran into the ground by Donald Trump.
But it was brought up by this is like the root
and
causes.
It was ran into the ground by Donald Trump for years and years and years and years and years. He is the real person who was behind it.
Root causes, just like the root cause behind this brawl thing being blown out of proportion was Bernie Moreno and J.D. Vance. And they got ran out of proportion by people who are using it for political gain, like Donald Trump used it for political gain. That Hillary Clinton political gain. Use Hillary Clinton bringing up the fact that Barack Obama birth certificate, Hillary Clinton brought that up first. Was he even born on this soil when they were debating in the debates for the Democratic presidency? I don't think it was 2012, 2011, 2012. They were doing a debate. Hillary Clinton brought that up first. And then Donald Trump remembered it and brought it up again. Even Hillary
ran with it for years and ran with
it. Yes, so root causes. So when you talk about, you answer me a question, how can I defend the birther thing? The birther thing, root cause was Hillary Clinton.
How can you defend? No. What I'm asking you is, if you're so upset about Republicans playing the race card here in Cincinnati, why were you not upset about Donald Trump using the race card against Barack Obama when he ran for years and years and years?
Because I don't believe Barack Obama was born. I don't like Barack Obama.
Okay,
I don't like Barack.
So there you go.
I'm honest. I don't like Barack Obama. I don't think he's.
But what about the? Okay, so you don't like Barack Obama. Yeah. But what about the Central Park Five? I mean, you were so quick to say, let's call it.
Let's go to root causes.
Let me get it out. You were so quick to say, let's call it the Cincinnati Six, right? But what about the Central Park Five? And that was Donald Trump, who to this day has not apologized for it. They're now the exonerated five, but you still rolling with him.
The Central Park Five was
you don't like
the root cause. The Central Park Five was initiated by Democrats. The Democratic prosecutor, the Democratic prosecuting attorney. It was a Democratic time, and at that time, crime was really heavy. So it was kind of like the crack epidemic. And I don't condone that. What I seen with Donald Trump and why I supported Donald Trump over Kamala Harris is because Kamala Harris did not check my boxes about what I wanted in a president. It's simple as that. Yeah. Moving forward to J.D. Vance and what's going on to the United States in Cincinnati more directly affects me because I'm here in Cincinnati every day. I go to Cincinnati once a week for groceries and everything, and I see injustice with my own two eyes. And I'm going to take it one step further. When I first got into politics in 2018, I had to sit on my hands during the Breonna Taylor situation. I had to sit on my hands. I couldn't do anything because I was just getting into politics and I seen what was going on and I was learning truth. I was learning reality. I was learning media spin. I was learning Ben Crump. I was learning Tamika Mallory. I was learning all these things in Kentucky politics whenever I was first getting involved. And I sat on my hands and I watched this whole thing go on and I saw, what's his name, get elected. Now, this time, I can't. Something's stirring in my spirit, man. I just can't do it. I can't sit down.
This is called Trump derangement syndrome. Like
Trump's gone.
You will turn yourself into a pretzel to fit into whatever space you have to defend this.
Donald Trump is gone. Donald Trump is already elected. And Donald Trump is elected, and he's going to be out of the picture in the next 3 years. I can see that. I'm saying, okay, here's my thing. As a Republican and who has been a person who has tried to bring black people to the Republican Party, they are not moving in the direction that I would like to see black people. Like Martin Luther King said, I'm afraid I'm leading my people into a burning house. At this point where I'm at in my political career as a Republican, and me trying to bring black people in the Republican Party and seeing how the Republicans are acting in this situation makes me not want to be a Republican anymore. So I can pivot. Yeah, I can pivot. I can grow. I can say, I can grow. I can get to a point and I can say, hey, J.D. Vance, you had a chance to turn this Republican Party, and you had a chance to choose MAGA. I've said this on this program before, MAGA or the black community. And I could have swore that J.D. Vance was going to pick the black community. But like I've said on this program lots of times, white people disappoint me every single time, and this time they disappointed me again.
Okay, Tarris, please, on behalf of the white race, I'm asking you to reconsider.
I'm talking about politically. I can't put my trust in somebody and endorse them as a president or somebody who's going to rule over me. Somebody who's going to rule over me, who's going to rule over me.
This is why I say the essence of politics is hypocrisy, and Tarris just clearly outlined that. But he did say something that I think is truthful, and I think it's true for most people, is that if you don't like somebody, you will vote for somebody that you might not like either, but you like them a little bit more than the person that you don't like. Now, I don't know. I can't remember whether Tarris said he voted for Donald Trump or whether he didn't vote for Trump. No, he didn't.
We know
he voted. Okay. So, I mean, I think when people are faced with a binary choice, that's what it is sometimes, is who do you hate less, right? I mean, to his point about Hillary Clinton and the Barack Obama thing, he's not wrong about that, because I remember when Hillary Clinton and Bill, when they got desperate, when it was looking like Barack was going to beat them, they went to the race well. They went to the race well. They absolutely did. And it pissed off a whole lot of black people.
That was never in doubt. We know that.
I'm convinced that some of that, I'm convinced
dragged it for years and years and years. That was the point.
Yeah, no, I'm not absolving Trump from it either. I mean, what I would say to Terrence is, if you're gonna stand on principle, if it bothered you, if you're gonna bring up Hillary Clinton and what she did, it should bother you when Donald Trump did it. That, to me, that's the test of principle. The test of principle is you believe in what you believe in.
I believe it when Hillary Clinton. I believe it when Hillary Clinton said it, and I believed it when Donald Trump said it. I believe it when Hillary Clinton said it.
Because you didn't because you don't like Obama.
Exactly. So I ain't picking. I didn't like it when I didn't like Barack when she said.
Yeah, I know.
And I did my research on Barack Obama. I didn't like him then.
I know.
And when Hillary said it, and I didn't like it when Trump said it. So it is what it is.
I mean, I guess I just got to point out the inconsistency. I mean, again, I think we need black people to be in the Republican Party who are going to be consistent to their principles. I just pointed out, it just seemed like there was some inconsistency there, bro. But you do you. Like,
but Terry, here's the truth. Here's the truth, Nathan. If you black and you stand on some of the principles that Tarris stood on, you're not going to be in the Republican Party. You're not going to get elected because you can't come in that party talking that kind of stuff. What Tarris was just talking and the way he kind of talked, you're not going to get elected. You're not going to get no plum if you're not prepared to Tim Scott it. You know, if you aren't prepared to do what some of these other brothers in the Republican Party do. You're not going to elevate within the Republic. You might be able to win a local election or something like that, but you're certainly not going to elevate to no state or federal politics in the Republican Party as a black man unless you sell out your principles and your soul. Because the stuff that black folks are talking about, Republicans ain't talking about. That's just the real. And if you try to go up in Republican circles and start, Phil isn't even in the establishment anymore, right? But still,
I'm on an island.
But still, you see how difficult you see how difficult it is to get a lot of the black talking points past Phil. And Phil is somebody who hates Donald Trump. So you ain't gonna get none of this community oriented policing and
was that a compliment? I try to figure.
And we think Phil is enlightened. He one of the more enlightened ones.
No, so what's it going to take for you to step away from the Republican Party? Have you ever thought about it?
That's what I call a backhanded compliment.
Phil or myself?
Hey, Phil, what's it going to take for you? Have you ever thought about just looking at where the Republican Party is today? Have you ever thought about, is this really where I want to be? Like, what's your relationship with the party? Because it's clearly all MAGA now. Are you hoping that once Trump leaves, it can go back to what it used to be? But how do you see it?
The reason I am a Republican and will remain is because I believe in the basic principles and ideas that the party was and is supposed to stand for. Okay? They don't live up to that. And in some ways, the Democrats don't live up to theirs, but much more so, I'll agree with the Republicans. I believe in balanced budgets, though I have to admit the only president in 20 years that balanced it was Bill Clinton. But that's what I believe. I do believe in protecting democracy, standing up to dictators. Okay. And
what makes you stay?
Because I think it's put it this way, it's very important to have people in the Republican Party that are willing to stand up for what our party is supposed to stand for. And to be honest with you, it gives me more of a I don't know if you call it a soapbox, but more of an opportunity. If I was just another Democrat, nobody paid any attention to me. Maybe they don't pay that much now. But I have the ability, and Kevin, I published a whole bunch of op-eds in his paper as a Republican because I have the ability to call Republicans to account. Okay, to like just yesterday, not to go on, I happened to get a call from this reporter on the Boston Globe because he was doing a story about how the Republican Party, I didn't even know this. Well, I did know it. They're changing. That used to be they had Lincoln Reagan dinners. Okay. And I used to go to a lot when I was campaigning for Congress. Now they're either changing it to Lincoln Reagan Trump, or they're just getting rid of Lincoln and Reagan and making it Trump dinner. And as a Republican, I was able to say to this guy that Donald Trump, if we really are the party of Reagan and Lincoln, Donald Trump has nothing to do. He's the complete opposite of both of them. Okay, what he's now engaging in this retribution campaign against Bolton, all the people he hates. What did Abraham Lincoln say after the Civil War, when over 600,000 people died because of the actions of the South? He said, "With malice toward none, with charity for all." Could you imagine a bigger contrast and with Donald Trump? And I'd say a Republican has the opportunity to point that out and that hypocrisy much more easily than a Democrat.
Phil, but hold on, Phil. I got to push back on him.
Makes a lot of sense, Phil.
Do you have political aspirations to run for Congress again? Because you can do that as an independent. Because I am posed.
You can't win as an independent.
Let me finish my question. And you just answered then. Are you prepared to make a run for some kind of office? Is the only reason why you're holding on to that Republican name, or do you got the cojones enough to go out to be an independent? You can still talk truth to the matter, because you just said the only reason why you can't win an election. I know that. So if I know right now, if I go and I not denounce, but if I switch my party affiliation from Republican to independent, because I'll never be a Democrat ever a day in my life, it's political suicide. For me, if I want to go any further, is that the only reason why you're doing it? Is that for political gain?
I'll respond to that. Nicole was talking about her daughter having fear of the police, but she now wants to be on the police. And I would guess that her mind isn't that she necessarily just loves all the cops, but she wants to work from the inside to improve the system. That's why I always want to be a prosecutor. I've always believed in the presumption of innocence and the rights of that. No, it's better that, this expression, it's better that 9 guilty people go free than one innocent person be convicted. That's why I joined the prosecutor's office, because I could have an impact on that. And I did have an impact. So it's the same thing. my goal, as far as what, I don't know what I'm going to do from now on, but I do want to have an impact. And to me, I want to have an impact on protecting our democracy. That's what where my heart is.
You plan on running again or not? Without all that, that would sound like a political answer.
I'll tell you exactly.
You gonna run or not?
I'll be honest with you. I ask God, I say, Lord, sorry if I sound kind of religious here, but I say, God, use me. I want to protect our democracy. And I'll be honest with you, whatever he tells me to do, I'm going to do. So I don't know.
That's a fair answer, Phil. I appreciate and respect that answer 150,000% because I live my life the same way. Whatever God has for me is for me.
I want to say I respect both you guys being honest. Tarris kept it real. I don't like them. Hey, I appreciate. I could understand that. Just keep it real. Angry black women, which I don't really like saying that. TNT, you want to get the last word in?
I don't know why.
I don't know.
I don't know why.
I'll go with it. Okay, angry black woman. Last word.
I embrace all the stigma because it's an emotion. I am human, and so anger is just part of humanity, and we all have that feeling at times. And if you're not angry in this environment, in this moment, then you're not paying attention. So for me, yeah, I'm stay leveled up. That doesn't mean that I'm not able to function and able to like organize and everything else. So with all that being said, brother Phil, sexy Phil, you got your work cut out for you. I feel for Republicans right now. I really, really do, because especially the ones that have the audacity to step out and speak up against, the higher powers in your party, and the way only a few of you have the courage to say something, and then you're ostracized. And then a lot of them are left to, just retire or whatnot. And I just feel like in that party, it's just whatever those values were prior, they're slowly dying out. And that's a shame, because we need two or however many parties that, can bounce off each other. It's supposed to be a collective of ideas. And that's why, when Biden was in office, he did keep some of Trump's policies, the ones that were good at work. And, whereas Trump, things that are actually going to improve, our society, just because it has Biden and Obama's name on it, and he's that petty, he's eliminating everything. And that's not the way good government works, what I'm saying? So, I long for the days when we're able to come back together, use that C word, compromise, and work together again as a collective, as a United States. But right now it's so divided, and the people that work hard to keep us divided, those are the ones that we should be leery of, because at the end of the day, it's about you, it's about your family, it's about your life, it's about your American dream. And anyone that's trying to make that more challenging for you, more harder for you, is not working for you, it's not representing you, and it's not for you. And that should be clear as day. And so it's not a hard choice for me. I'm not gun-ho on Democrats or anything. Like I said before, most Black people, we vote our interests. You know what I mean? And so every person isn't going to be 100% of what you want. But if they have 90-80% majority of the things that you support, that's generally where you can put your vote and who you rock with. Because at the end of the day, you're going to vote someone in power. And even the people that just said, I'm not voting at all, you did vote. You just basically disqualified your vote, and you gave it to, the opposition. And it's part of the reason where we are right now, because, you allowed other people to make an important decision for you. And so the consequences of it, the suffering of it, everybody's going to feel it. You're going to be impacted too, even if you didn't vote. So it's very important, every election, have your voice heard. It's the one great equalizer for all of us. It doesn't matter what your race is. It doesn't matter what your class is. Your vote is equal to anyone and everyone else. And it matters. It absolutely matters. So that's all I have.
Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate you. Have a great Tuesday. And again, we're scheduled to hook up with Ken Colbert on Friday. We'll try to get the tech together between now and then. Have a great Tuesday, and we'll talk with you real soon. Thank you.